This audiobook unveils the alignment attraction formula, the long-hidden law that explains how to pull the right person into your orbit through pure energetic alignment. As you listen, you'll feel the stirrings of the secret soul magnet within you, the frequency only the right soul can hear. Your resonance is your power, and that power awakens now. The alignment attraction formula. You didn't arrive here by accident. Certain pages find certain souls. If this book found you, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. I'm giving away a free physical copy of this book, packed with ancient wisdom and timeless insight. The details are in the pinned comment, so don't forget to check it out. Introduction. The art of becoming magnetic to love starts with a profound understanding. You are already whole. Your resonant identity isn't something you need to create from scratch. It's already within you, waiting to be activated through conscious alignment. Think of yourself as an instrument that's always playing a tune. Every thought, every action, every choice vibrates at a specific frequency. When these vibrations are scattered or discordant, they create static in your love frequency. But when they harmonize, they broadcast a clear signal that attracts precisely what matches your authentic essence. This isn't about manifesting a perfect partner through wishful thinking. It's about tuning yourself to such crystal clarity that anything misaligned naturally falls away, while what truly resonates is drawn to you like a tuning fork, finding its match. Your morning ritual might be as simple as 3 deep breaths while setting an intention for alignment. Your evening practice could involve reviewing moments where you felt most authentically yourself. Throughout the day, pause to check in with your body's wisdom. Does this situation, person, or choice feel expansive or contracting? These micro moments of awareness gradually refine your frequency. Consider Sarah, who spent years trying to be what she thought others wanted. Her breakthrough came when she started honoring her natural rhythm, including her need for solitude, her passion for unconventional art, and her desire for deep, unhurried conversations. As she stopped apologizing for these authentic expressions, she noticed how potential partners began responding differently. Those who wouldn't have understood her true nature naturally drifted away, while people who genuinely appreciated her essence started appearing in her life. Your resonant identity emerges through this dance of inner alignment and outer expression. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about clearing away what isn't truly yours so your authentic frequency can shine through unobstructed. This is the foundation upon which all genuine connections are built. Begin today by asking yourself, what feels most true to me? What energy am I currently embodying? The gap between these answers is where your transformative work begins. Part 1. Awakening the Magnetic Self. Chapter 1. The Soul as a Signal. Walter rushed into his usual diner, mind already racing through his packed schedule. The morning crowd bustled around him as he approached the counter, where Maria, the veteran barista, matched his hurried energy with quick, efficient movements. "The usual?" she asked, already reaching for his coffee cup. His curt nod received an equally brief response as she swiftly prepared his order. A week later, Walter arrived early, feeling unusually relaxed after a morning meditation. This time, Maria's whole demeanor shifted to match his calmer state. She smiled warmly, shared a brief story about the local jazz festival, and even remembered to ask about his sister's art show. The interaction left him puzzled. It was as if he'd encountered 2 different versions of the same person. This simple observation revealed a profound truth. We constantly broadcast signals that shape our interactions. Like a radio tower transmitting on a specific frequency, our internal state sends out waves that others unconsciously tune into and reflect back to us. At the neighborhood council meeting that evening, Walter watched this principle unfold in real time. Sandra, with her sharp tone and crossed arms, attracted equally defensive responses from others. Meanwhile, James's open posture and thoughtful questions drew people into deeper conversations. The most striking example was Lisa, whose genuine curiosity and warm attention created a small circle of engaged participants, each person matching her level of presence. These weren't coincidences. They were demonstrations of the universal law of resonance. Every unexamined anxiety, hidden judgment, or unconscious expectation creates a subtle but powerful field that either attracts or repels potential connections. The good news is that this field can be consciously refined. The 3-minute morning signal check has emerged as a powerful tool for developing awareness of your baseline frequency. Each morning, before engaging with the world, take 3 minutes to First minute, sit quietly and notice your current emotional weather, not trying to change anything, simply observing what's present. Second minute, feel how this internal state might be perceived by others. If your current energy had a color or texture, what would it be? Third minute, consciously choose the signal you wish to broadcast today. Rather than forcing a false positivity, adjust your frequency through small, authentic shifts in posture, breath, and intention. Like tuning a delicate instrument, this daily practice gradually aligns your unconscious broadcasts with your conscious intentions. The key is consistency rather than perfection. Even subtle adjustments in your baseline signal can create profound shifts in who and what you attract into your field. Chapter 2. The Universal Law of Alignment. The late afternoon sun filtered through the post office windows as Mabel stood in line, absently watching the dance of humanity before her. Her attention caught on 2 distinct couples ahead. The first pair moved with unconscious synchronicity, their shoulders turning in matched rhythm as they discussed weekend plans. The second couple occupied the same physical space, but inhabited different energetic realms. He checked his phone while she stared at the ceiling, their bodies angled away from each other like opposing magnets. A young mother entered with her toddler, and Mabel noticed how certain people automatically shifted to create space while others remained oblivious. The woman's warm "thank you" drew answering smiles from those who had moved, creating a momentary web of connection that seemed to brighten the stuffy air. This simple scene illustrated a profound truth. Alignment creates magnetism. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions harmonize, you generate a coherent field that naturally attracts matching frequencies. Like instruments tuning to the same pitch, aligned beings recognize and respond to each other without conscious effort. Later that week, Mabel conducted a small experiment. She made a private commitment to honor her creative time each morning, blocking out the first hour after dawn for writing. As she held this promise, she noticed subtle shifts in her interactions. Her neighbor, usually chatty during their shared elevator rides, began respecting her morning quiet. A colleague who often scheduled early meetings started suggesting afternoon times instead. Most remarkably, she found herself drawing in others who valued creative practice. During a coffee run, she overheard someone mention morning pages and found herself in an animated conversation about artistic routines. These weren't random coincidences. They were demonstrations of the law of alignment in action. Just as a compass needle trembles before finding true north, your energy field seeks coherence. When your beliefs whisper one thing while your actions shout another, you create interference patterns that muddy your attractive force. But when thought, feeling, and action align, you become like a clear bell tone, drawing in resonant experiences with natural ease. The alignment audit offers a practical way to check your personal field for contradictions and restore coherence. Twice weekly, preferably at dawn or dusk when the energy field is naturally more receptive, take a moment to first identify one core belief about relationships that feels true in your bones. Next, notice what emotion arises when you hold this belief. Does your body expand or contract? Does your breath deepen or shallow? Finally, choose one small action that could bring your external life into better alignment with this inner truth. This simple practice reveals where your personal signal might be splitting, allowing you to adjust your frequency with precision and care. Like tuning a fine instrument, these minor adjustments accumulate into profound shifts in your attractive field. Chapter 3. Frequency before form. Harold stood in his living room, smartphone in hand, staring at the dance invitation that had just lit up his screen. The local swing dancing meetup, something he'd been curious about for months. His finger hovered over the accept button as he noticed two distinct sensations arising within him, a genuine spark of excitement in his belly and a familiar pressure in his chest that whispered, "You should." He closed his eyes, letting his awareness sink below the mental chatter about what he should do. The genuine excitement remained steady, while the pressure began to dissolve. This was the difference between true desire and performed enthusiasm, a distinction that would shape everything that followed. In the quiet space of listening, Harold remembered something essential. Authentic connection flows from embodied truth, not carefully constructed scenarios. When we try to build relationships from the outside in, forcing ourselves into situations before we're truly ready, we create a subtle dissonance that others can sense, even if they can't name it. 2 weeks later, Harold ran into Marcus at the local cafe. There was something different about his old acquaintance, a quiet steadiness that seemed to create a bubble of calm in the bustling space. As they chatted, Harold realized what had changed. Marcus had stopped trying to fill every silence, stopped attempting to be interesting. Instead, he simply was interested, fully present to each moment of their conversation. This encounter illuminated a crucial truth. The quality of our presence shapes our connections more powerfully than any words or actions. Marcus wasn't doing anything different. He had become different, and that shift in his being naturally drew others into its orbit. The path to meaningful connection begins not with orchestrating perfect scenarios, but with cultivating the emotional frequency we wish to experience. Instead of fixating on specific outcomes or rehearsing ideal conversations, we must first embody the qualities we seek to attract. The practice. The sensory scene. Find a quiet moment and settle into a comfortable position. Close your eyes and imagine a simple, everyday encounter, perhaps getting coffee or walking in a park. But instead of scripting dialogue or plotting actions, focus entirely on the felt experience. How does your body feel in this imagined space? Notice the weight of your feet on the ground, the rhythm of your breath, the way you hold your shoulders. What qualities are you embodying? Perhaps it's ease, openness, or quiet confidence. Let yourself fully experience these states. What sensations arise as you imagine connecting with another person from this embodied place? Pay attention to subtle shifts in your energy, changes in your breathing, any physical responses. Stay with these sensations for 5 minutes, letting the scene unfold naturally without trying to control it. This isn't about visualizing a perfect interaction. It's about training your system to recognize and inhabit the frequency of authentic connection. Chapter 4. The Mirror Principle. Agnes shifted uncomfortably in her seat at the neighborhood luncheon as Sarah, a woman she'd just met, directly called out another guest's tendency to interrupt. While others awkwardly stirred their iced teas, Agnes felt a flash of recognition. Sarah's bluntness had unwittingly held up a mirror to Agnes's own carefully concealed impatience with people who talked over others. For weeks, Agnes had silently fumed during book club meetings when certain members dominated discussions. She'd maintained a polite smile while internally rehearsing sharp corrections. Now, watching Sarah voice what Agnes had only thought, she saw her own unspoken frustration reflected back at her. The universe has an elegant way of showing us our hidden patterns through others. Whether someone irritates us with a habit we secretly share or demonstrates a quality we've been afraid to embrace, these mirrors appear precisely when we're ready to see them. The key lies not in judging the reflection, but in recognizing it as an invitation to inner work. Later that month, Agnes found herself in a heated discussion with her neighbor about community garden policies. As her neighbor became increasingly defensive, Agnes noticed her own rising frustration. Instead of engaging further, she excused herself for a walk. During those quiet steps around the block, she asked herself what this interaction was really showing her about her own relationship with control and flexibility. This is the art of using interpersonal friction as a gateway to self-knowledge. Every challenging encounter carries a message about our own unexamined beliefs, fears, or patterns. The person who triggers us becomes our greatest teacher, revealing precisely where we need to grow. The practice, the mirror's message. After any interaction that leaves you feeling charged, whether with irritation, defensiveness, or strong reaction, pause for a brief journaling session. Answer these 3 questions with radical honesty, but without self-judgment. What quality in this person or situation am I reacting to most strongly? Where might I express or suppress this same quality in my own life? What would shift if I fully accepted this reflection as information rather than irritation? Let each answer arise naturally, without forcing insights or rushing to conclusions. The mirror's message often reveals itself in layers, showing us exactly what we're ready to see and integrate. Chapter 5. Clearing the Static. Clarence's hands trembled slightly as he lifted the dusty cardboard box from beneath the attic rafters. Inside, bundles of letters tied with faded ribbon carried the weight of decades. Correspondence from his first love, Catherine, who had moved abroad 30 years ago. Each envelope held not just words, but the static charge of what might have been. As he sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, surrounded by memories, Clarence felt the familiar tightness in his chest. These old letters weren't just paper. They were emotional anchors, tethering him to ancient hurt and lingering questions. Their very presence seemed to create interference in his present relationships, like background noise disrupting a clear signal. This static in our emotional field comes from 3 primary sources: unprocessed resentment that replays old scenarios, unmet grief that seeks resolution, and habitual doubt that questions our worthiness. Each creates its own form of interference, distorting how clearly we can receive new connections. The key to clearing this static lies in understanding that emotions, like energy, cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Through conscious breath work, we can transmute old pain into neutral energy. Through symbolic release rituals, we can honor what was while creating space for what could be. Through boundary resets, we can protect our cleared space from old patterns trying to resurface. Later that week, when Clarence received a message from a dating app match suggesting they meet at the same cafe where he and Catherine had shared their last goodbye, he felt the familiar surge of resistance. But instead of letting the static of the past dictate his response, he paused. Taking 3 deep breaths, he acknowledged the old pain, released it with an exhale, and typed a warm reply suggesting a different venue. The practice. 3-step evening clearing. Each night before sleep, perform this simple clearing ritual. First, name what needs releasing. Speak it clearly but simply. I release the doubt from my failed business venture. Or, I release the grief of my ended marriage. Next, breathe deeply into the center of that emotion, allowing each exhale to carry away a layer of the charge it holds. Continue until you feel a physical shift in your body. Finally, seal the clearing with a phrase that marks completion. It is done, or I choose peace now. Let these words serve as a gentle but firm closing to the day's emotional processing. This ritual, performed consistently, creates space for new possibilities to emerge unhindered by old static. Chapter 6. The Sacred Choice to Receive. Dorothy stood on her front porch, staring at the steaming bowl of homemade soup her neighbor Mrs. Chen had brought over. "I couldn't possibly," she said, even as her empty refrigerator and aching head reminded her she hadn't eaten properly in days while fighting this flu. "I'm managing just fine on my own." The words came automatically, rising from that deep place where her father's voice still echoed, "Dorothas never ask for help." 3 generations of self-reliance had carved those words into family legend. Yet something in Mrs. Chen's gentle persistence made Dorothy pause, examining this reflexive resistance. When we block receiving, we create a dam in the natural flow of life's abundance. This resistance often manifests in 3 distinct ways. First, through inherited rules about independence that mistake interconnection for weakness. Second, through a deep-seated sense of unworthiness that makes receiving feel uncomfortable or undeserved. Third, through old vows of self-protection that confuse vulnerability with danger. True receptivity requires neither submission nor the abandonment of boundaries. Instead, it asks for a sophisticated balance, the wisdom to discern genuine offerings from manipulation, coupled with the courage to allow support when it serves our highest good. This balance emerges through practice, through small moments of choosing to remain open despite our ingrained responses. Later that week, Dorothy found herself at her community garden plot, where a fellow gardener offered to share his excess tomato seedlings. Her first impulse was to decline. She had always started her plants from scratch. But remembering the soup incident, she took a breath and accepted 3 small plants. As she tucked them into her garden bed alongside her own seedlings, she realized that accepting help hadn't diminished her competence or independence. Instead, it had created an unexpected moment of connection, her garden now holding a story of shared abundance. The power to receive lies not in abandoning discernment, but in expanding our capacity to recognize genuine opportunities for growth and connection. Each time we consciously choose to accept what is lovingly offered, we strengthen our ability to participate in life's natural rhythm of giving and receiving. The practice begins each morning with a 3-breath reception ritual. On the first breath, acknowledge any resistance to receiving. On the second breath, soften that resistance without trying to eliminate it. On the third breath, open to the possibility of receiving one good thing today. Before sleep, note in a simple phrase one instance where you accepted something, whether tangible or intangible, without diminishing yourself. For example, "I accepted Sarah's compliment about my presentation," or "I allowed James to help me carry the groceries." Let each small act of receiving build your capacity for the next. Chapter 7. Desire as Divine Guidance. Theodore sat at his desk, absently sketching waves in his notebook margin while pretending to focus on quarterly reports. For the 3rd time that week, the image of a small coastal bookshop floated into his mind. He quickly dismissed it as impractical daydreaming, a luxury he couldn't afford with 2 decades invested in corporate finance. Yet the longing persisted, carrying with it the salt-fresh scent of possibility. This wasn't the sharp wanting of lack, but something deeper, a quiet knowing that whispered of alignment. When authentic desire rises from the soul, it arrives not as desperate grasping, but as gentle, persistent guidance. Unlike the ego's scattered wants, soul-level longing has a distinctive signature. It returns repeatedly, feels expansive rather than constrictive, and carries a sense of rightness, even when it seems illogical to the rational mind. These desires serve as compass points, indicating directions of growth and authenticity. However, most people misread these signals in 3 ways, dismissing them as impractical fantasies, mistaking them for signs of current lack, or becoming paralyzed by their seeming impossibility. The key lies in understanding that desire's purpose is not immediate manifestation, but gradual alignment. Each authentic longing contains within it a map of incremental shifts, small, doable actions that move life into greater coherence with one's true nature. Later that week, Theodore noticed himself lingering in local bookshops during lunch breaks. He found himself drawn to the same corner each time, where travel guides met literary fiction. The scent of books and quiet conversations stirred something in him that his corner office never had. This wasn't about escaping his current life, but about recognizing an essential truth about who he was. To work with desire effectively, it must be translated from abstract longing into concrete elements, the core feeling it evokes, the tangible images it presents, and the minimal actions it suggests. This translation transforms vague wanting into practical guidance. The practice set aside 10 minutes for this desire mapping exercise. First, name one persistent desire without censoring or judging it. Next, identify the feeling quality beneath it, not what you think having it would feel like, but the emotion it already evokes when you consider it. Finally, identify one tiny step that aligns with this desire's direction. For example, if the desire is for creative expression, the feeling might be expansion, and the small step could be buying a notebook. Let the action be so small it seems almost insignificant. This removes resistance and creates momentum through actual movement rather than perfect planning. Chapter 8. Self-Value as a Magnetic Force. Beatrice stood at Marshall's fine tailoring, her grandmother's vintage dress draped carefully across the counter. The elderly tailor examined the delicate beadwork, noting the intricate repairs needed. "For you, half price," he offered with a dismissive wave. "It's an old dress anyway." Beatrice felt the familiar tightening in her chest, the one that came whenever someone suggested she should settle for less. "Thank you, but I'll pay full price. This dress deserves proper restoration." The tailor straightened, really seeing her for the first time. His casual demeanor shifted to professional respect. "Of course, we'll treat it with the finest care." Every interaction carries a hidden negotiation of worth. Each time you accept less than you know is right, you're not just compromising on a single moment. You're programming your entire field to attract similar compromises. Your self-worth isn't an abstract concept. It's a living frequency built from hundreds of small choices. These choices appear mundane. Accepting rushed service because you don't want to cause trouble. Saying yes to invitations that don't honor your time. Tolerating subtle dismissals to keep the peace. But each choice sends a ripple through your energetic field, teaching others how to treat you and, more importantly, reinforcing what you believe you deserve. Later that week, Beatrice sat at a cafe when an acquaintance pulled up a chair uninvited, launching into a monologue about his problems. In the past, she would have nodded politely, sacrificing her peaceful morning to avoid seeming unkind. "I'm sorry," she said firmly, "but I'm in the middle of something important." The boundary was clear, but not unkind. He blinked, surprised, then apologized and left. Minutes later, a former colleague she deeply respected noticed her and asked properly if she had time to catch up. The contrast was striking. Self-worth isn't about grandiose declarations or demanding special treatment. It's built through small, consistent actions that honor your inherent value. Each time you pause before automatically saying yes, each time you charge your full rate without apology, each time you speak up about a small discomfort, you're laying another brick in the foundation of your worth. The practice. Begin and end each day with this worth-anchoring phrase, spoken aloud while maintaining eye contact with yourself in a mirror. I honor my worth through my choices. Then spend 1 minute rehearsing a boundary statement that feels challenging, such as, "I'm not available for that," or "That doesn't work for me." Practice until the words feel natural in your mouth and your gaze remains steady. The mirror work might feel uncomfortable at first. This discomfort is precisely why it's necessary. Chapter 9. The Inner Sanctuary. Edwin stood in his small apartment, carefully arranging objects on a wooden shelf he'd mounted that morning. A smooth river stone from his grandfather's farm, a photograph of sunrise over the ocean, a small brass bell that rang with perfect clarity, a journal bound in soft leather. Each item carried a story, a frequency, a reminder of who he was at his core. These weren't mere decorations. They were anchors in a world that often felt chaotic and unsteady. When uncertainty crept in, Edwin would pause before this shelf, pick up the stone, feel its cool weight in his palm, and remember his grandfather's unwavering presence. The photograph transported him to that dawn when he'd finally found clarity after months of confusion. The bell's pure tone reset his nervous system. The journal held his deepest truths. Your external environment shapes your internal landscape more profoundly than you might realize. Every space you inhabit becomes either a sanctuary that sustains your highest frequency or a source of subtle drainage. The objects you surround yourself with aren't neutral. They're broadcasting stations, either amplifying or dampening your core vibration. One evening, Edwin heard a soft knock at his door. His neighbor Rachel stood there, clearly exhausted after a difficult day. Without fanfare, he invited her in for tea. As she sank into the armchair near his sanctuary shelf, he noticed her breathing slow, her shoulders soften. "Your apartment feels different," she said. "Peaceful." "It's intentional," Edwin replied, pouring the tea. "Everything here is chosen to maintain a certain frequency." They sat in comfortable silence, the brass bell catching the last rays of sunset. Rachel left an hour later, steadier than when she'd arrived. The next week, she brought him a small crystal that now had its place on his shelf, their frequencies interweaving, creating something new. This is how magnetic spaces work. They don't just hold your own vibration, they invite harmonious connections. When you craft your environment with intention, you create a field that naturally attracts those who resonate with your frequency while gently deflecting what doesn't align. The practice. Each evening, spend 5 minutes at your sanctuary space. Light a candle or use soft lighting. Hold each sacred object, letting its energy recalibrate your field. Close with 3 deep breaths, silently affirming, "This space holds my truth. This frequency is my home." Let this brief ritual reset your vibration and seal the day's learning. Chapter 10. The Moment of Awakening. The rain fell in gentle sheets across the train platform as Lillian checked her watch again. Another delay. Around her, fellow commuters huddled under the awning, faces pinched with familiar morning irritation. A child splashed through a puddle nearby, earning a sharp rebuke from his mother. Lillian felt the habitual urge to join the collective gloom. Instead, she made a different choice. She smiled, not a forced grin, but a genuine appreciation for the rain's steady rhythm, the child's innocent joy, even the shared predicament of waiting. An elderly gentleman caught her eye and returned the smile. Within moments, they were chatting about their favorite rainy day memories. This is the essence of awakening. The moment you realize that your frequency isn't just responding to circumstances, but actively creating them. Your energy field is constantly broadcasting, attracting experiences and connections that match its signature. This isn't mystical thinking. It's the fundamental physics of human interaction. 3 months later, Lillian sat in her favorite cafe, stirring honey into her tea. A server accidentally knocked over a water glass at the next table. Without thinking, Lillian reached for napkins, offering them with the same easy warmth she'd been cultivating since that rainy morning. The flustered server relaxed visibly, and they shared a moment of simple human connection. Later, reflecting on the interaction, Lillian realized something had shifted. Her responses were no longer calculated choices, but natural expressions of her refined frequency. The smile, the reached-out hand, the moment of patience. These had become her default settings rather than conscious efforts. Awakening isn't a dramatic event, but a subtle recognition that ripples through every interaction. It's the understanding that your frequency is the primary force of attraction in your life, more powerful than any external action or circumstance. When this truth settles into your bones, everything shifts, not because the world has changed, but because you're broadcasting at a different frequency. The practice. For the next 2 weeks, maintain a morning awakening journal. Each day, record 3 signs of inner movement you've noticed. This isn't about forcing change, but about documenting the organic evolution of your frequency. Let each morning's reflection anchor your awakening more deeply into your lived experience. Watch how your natural frequency becomes increasingly magnetic, drawing to you exactly what resonates with your truth. Part 2. Deepening the Magnetic Field. Chapter 11. The Emotional Tuning Fork. The soft jazz drifting through Roscoe's apartment walls wasn't his choice. It was his neighbor's morning ritual. At first, he found it intrusive, another urban annoyance to add to his list. But as he sat with his coffee one Sunday morning, he noticed something peculiar. The mellow saxophone had shifted his usual morning tension into something lighter, more expansive. His shoulders had dropped, his breathing had deepened, and his mind had cleared. Like a radio being fine-tuned, emotions serve as precise indicators of our inner frequency. They're not inconveniences to be suppressed or problems to be solved. They're sophisticated guidance systems showing us exactly where our dial is set. Each feeling offers vital information about our current transmission to the world. When anger surfaces, it's not a failure of spiritual practice, but a clear signal that your frequency needs adjustment. When joy bubbles up, it's feedback that you're tuned to a beneficial channel. These emotional frequencies aren't random. They're responsive instruments constantly showing you where you stand. Later that week, Roscoe found himself in line at the grocery store, feeling the familiar surge of impatience as an elderly woman counted out exact change. Instead of tightening into his usual frustrated frequency, he remembered the jazz. He took a deep breath and intentionally shifted his energy toward curiosity. Within moments, a friendly conversation sparked with the person behind him, leading to an unexpected connection about neighborhood history. This is how frequency works. It's not about forcing positive thoughts, but about reading your emotional dial accurately and making subtle adjustments. When you treat feelings as information rather than obstacles, you gain the ability to fine-tune your transmission. The practice. As dusk approaches each day, pause for a simple tuning ritual. Name the dominant feeling that's been broadcasting through your day. Then, using gentle breath and a chosen image, like morning sunlight or flowing water, shift that feeling 2 notes higher on your emotional scale. Let this adjustment settle into your field naturally, without forcing or resistance. Chapter 12. The Frequency of Clarity. Ethel sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, surrounded by a decade of unsent letters. Each page held carefully crafted lists of traits she sought in a partner: educated, kind, successful, family-oriented. As she read through them, something felt hollow about these paper-thin descriptions. With sudden clarity, she gathered the pages and placed them in her recycling bin, keeping only one letter that had captured something deeper: the feeling of being truly seen. The truth about magnetic attraction lies not in external checklists, but in the precise emotional resonance you seek to experience. When you move beyond surface qualities to the feeling essence of what you desire, you activate a more powerful frequency. It's not about finding someone who matches your criteria. It's about aligning with the emotional texture of the connection you wish to create. Consider how different it feels to write financially stable versus I want to feel secure enough to dream together. The first creates a limiting parameter. The second opens a field of possibility. When you name the feeling you seek with precision, you tune your frequency to that exact vibration. One quiet afternoon at her local cafe, Ethel experimented with this principle. Instead of scanning faces for her usual checklist of traits, she held the phrase she'd distilled from her letter-clearing, peaceful presence that invites genuine conversation. Within minutes, she found herself in an unexpectedly rich discussion with another patron about photography, not because they matched on paper, but because their energies resonated at the same frequency. This is the art of emotional specificity, learning to name what you truly seek beneath the surface qualities. It requires honesty, clarity, and the courage to feel deeply enough to identify the exact texture of connection you desire. When you can name it precisely, you can embody it more fully. The practice. Take time to craft a single sentence that captures the essential feeling you wish to experience in partnership. Move beyond external traits to name the emotional quality that matters most. 3 times daily, morning, noon, and night, speak this feeling statement aloud while breathing deeply into your heart center. Let each breath anchor this frequency more firmly into your field. Chapter 13. The Magnetic Heart Space. The rain fell steadily that morning as Franklin hurried down Madison Avenue, his wide black umbrella sheltering him from the downpour. Ahead, he noticed an elderly woman hesitating at the corner, clutching her thin jacket close. Without thinking, he stepped closer and wordlessly extended his umbrella to cover them both. Their eyes met briefly, hers surprised, his warm, and in that moment, Franklin felt something shift inside him, a small door opening. Vulnerability is perhaps our most misunderstood magnetic force. We often confuse it with weakness or oversharing, but true vulnerability has a different quality altogether. It's the quiet courage to remain present and unarmored in life's small moments, to let yourself be seen without guarantees. Think of vulnerability as a frequency rather than an action. It's not about dramatic gestures or forced intimacy, but about maintaining a gentle openness that allows genuine connection to arise naturally. When you learn to hold this frequency skillfully, it becomes a powerful, attracting force. Later that week, Franklin was reading at his neighborhood coffee shop when someone accidentally knocked over his drink. Instead of brushing off their apology with the usual, "It's fine," he looked up and acknowledged the moment with simple presence. "These things happen. Thank you for letting me know." This small moment of authentic response led to a warm conversation that wouldn't have occurred behind his usual social shield. The key lies in understanding that vulnerability isn't about removing all boundaries. It's about having clear, strong boundaries that allow you to stay open within them. Like a house with well-built walls, you can safely keep your windows open to let in fresh air. You don't need to dismantle the structure to welcome connection. The practice: begin each morning with 3 deep breaths, placing your hand on your heart. With each exhale, imagine softening any unnecessary armor while maintaining your core strength. Then, commit to one small act of presence each day. A genuine smile, a moment of real listening, or a simple acknowledgement of another's experience. Notice how these modest openings create space for authentic connection without compromising your boundaries. These tiny experiments in vulnerability create ripples in your magnetic field, gradually transforming how others respond to your presence. The key is consistency rather than intensity, small daily acts of gentle openness rather than grand gestures of exposure. Remember, true vulnerability isn't about forcing openness, but about removing the unnecessary barriers to genuine connection while maintaining healthy boundaries. It's in this balance that magnetic attraction naturally arises. Chapter 14. Releasing the Old Echoes. Louise stood at apartment 4B, keys heavy in her palm. After 3 years as neighbors, Mark was moving across the country, and she'd agreed to water his plants one last time. As she extended the keys, memories surfaced like old photographs, their coffee conversations, shared garden projects, and that unmistakable spark they'd never acted on. The familiar ache of almost but not quite rose in her chest. Past relationships cast long shadows on our present connections. Every interaction becomes layered with echoes of previous experiences, creating unconscious scripts that play out again and again. These patterns aren't just memories. They're active forces shaping who we attract and how we respond. The core principle here is simple but profound. Until we consciously clear these old scripts, they continue directing our magnetic field. Louise recognized her pattern of drawing in unavailable people, always dancing on the edge of possibility without stepping into real connection. This wasn't just about Mark. It was about every almost relationship that had come before. 3 days later, Louise ran into Mark at the local market. Typically, she would have fallen into their usual pattern. Light banter masking deeper feelings, careful distance maintained through humor. But this time, she paused. Instead of deflecting with a joke, she simply said, "I wish you well on your journey, Mark. Thank you for being a good neighbor." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of truth and release. This moment represented more than just a goodbye. It was Louise choosing to break the script. By acknowledging the reality of the situation without hiding behind old patterns, she cleared space for new possibilities. The practice set aside 30 minutes in a quiet space. Light a candle or create some other marker of sacred time. First, witness the pattern without judgment. Write down the recurring relationship script you've noticed playing out. Next, extend forgiveness to yourself and others caught in this dance. Finally, perform a symbolic release. Burn the paper, bury it in earth, or let running water carry it away. Close by speaking aloud. I release this pattern with gratitude for its lessons. I am now free to write a new story. Through this conscious clearing, you begin to shift your magnetic field. Each release creates space for new possibilities, unburdened by old scripts. This isn't about erasing the past, but about choosing which energies you carry forward into future connections. Chapter 15: Embodying the Soul You Seek. The morning rush at Hope Community Kitchen was in full swing when Clyde noticed his hands trembling. The coffee urn had jammed again, and a line of tired faces waited for their morning cup. Instead of his usual frustrated sigh, he took a deep breath and smiled. "Let's see what we can do here," he said calmly, both to himself and the waiting crowd. As he worked methodically to fix the machine, Clyde remembered why he'd chosen this volunteer position. It wasn't just about serving others. It was his laboratory for practicing patience, a quality he desperately wanted to attract in a partner. Each small delay, each minor frustration became an opportunity to embody this trait. The essence of magnetic attraction lies not in what we want, but in what we become. When we embody the qualities we seek, we create a resonant field that naturally draws similar energies. This isn't about performance or pretense, it's about authentic transformation through consistent practice. 3 weeks into his volunteer commitment, Clyde found himself working alongside Maria, another regular volunteer. During a particularly hectic morning, a client became agitated about the wait time. Clyde watched as Maria handled the situation with the same steady patience he'd been practicing. Their eyes met across the counter in mutual understanding. "I noticed how you stayed calm back there," Maria said later as they cleaned up. "It reminded me of why I keep coming back. This place teaches you to slow down." This wasn't just a random connection. It was alignment born of shared practice, two people recognizing in each other the qualities they'd consciously cultivated. The field created by Clyde's consistent patience had drawn someone operating at the same frequency. The practice. Choose one trait you wish to attract in a partner. For the next 30 days, embody this quality through 3 small daily actions. Record each instance in a simple journal, noting any shifts in your interactions and the types of people drawn into your orbit. Remember, you're not performing the trait, you're becoming it. For example, if you choose patience like Clyde, morning, practice calm breathing during your commute. Midday, handle one challenging interaction with deliberate slowness. Evening, take time to listen fully in a conversation without rushing to respond. This 30-day embodiment becomes your magnetic signature, attracting those who resonate with the quality you've made real in your own life. Chapter 16. The Art of Allowing. On a misty autumn morning, Ida noticed a thin brown dog watching her from across the street as she watered her front garden. Her first impulse was to call out, to rush over with offerings of food and comfort. Instead, she continued her quiet work, occasionally glancing at the hesitant creature with soft eyes. "You can stay or go," she whispered, more to herself than the dog. "I'm just here, doing my thing." As she tended her flowers, letting the dog's choice remain its own, she felt a subtle shift in the air between them. By the time she finished watering the last bed, the dog had inched closer, now sitting at the edge of her lawn, head tilted in curiosity. This delicate dance of allowing reveals a profound truth about attraction. When we release our grip on outcomes, we create space for natural alignment to unfold. Allowing isn't passive resignation. It's active permission for life to move at its own tempo. It's the art of holding our desires firmly, but wearing them loosely. Think of allowing as energetic permission, a field of possibility that stays open without forcing. When we stop trying to orchestrate every moment, we align our inner rhythm with the natural timing of events. This creates a magnetic resonance that attracts experiences that match our authentic frequency. Later that week, Ida was sorting through her mail when she found an invitation to lead a community garden project, something she'd privately dreamed of but never pursued. Just days before, she had finally released her careful plans about how such an opportunity should arrive. "I'd been trying so hard to make something happen," she reflected, running her fingers over the embossed letter. "The moment I stopped pushing, the door opened on its own." The practice begin each morning with this 3-part allowing ritual. Take 3 long breaths, feeling your body soften with each exhale. Speak a simple letting go phrase such as, "I release control and trust timing." Then choose one small receptive action for the day, perhaps leaving space in your schedule for spontaneity or saying yes to an unexpected invitation. This practice isn't about abandoning desires or goals. It's about finding the sweet spot between intention and surrender, where magnetic attraction flows most naturally. Just as Ida learned with the stray dog, sometimes the gentlest approach creates the strongest connection. Chapter 17. Synchronistic Pathways. Milton stood at the bus stop, watching his usual 7:15 roll past without him. He'd been exactly 2 minutes late, just long enough to see its taillights disappearing around the corner. Instead of his typical frustrated response, something made him pause and take a deep breath. At the next stop, he found himself beside an elderly gentleman reading a worn copy of Jung's writings on synchronicity. The man looked up, smiled, and said, "Sometimes missing the bus is catching the moment you were meant to find." That simple exchange opened a doorway to understanding how the universe speaks through seemingly random events. Synchronicity isn't mere coincidence. It's the visible thread where inner alignment meets outer circumstance. When we're attuned to our true frequency, these meaningful coincidences appear as guideposts, showing us we're on path. The key lies in recognizing signs without becoming obsessed with their meaning. Pay attention to recurring themes, unexpected meetings, or those subtle nudges that feel significant without knowing why. These aren't commands to be obeyed, but invitations to explore. Later that week, Milton felt an inexplicable urge to take his lunch in the park instead of his usual desk routine. Following this gentle prompting, he found himself sharing a bench with someone who worked in his dream field, marine conservation. Their conversation revealed an upcoming project that aligned perfectly with his skills. "I almost dismissed that little whisper to come outside," Milton later reflected, "but something in me knew to listen." This is how synchronicity works, through subtle suggestions rather than dramatic signs. The key is maintaining a balance between awareness and attachment. Notice patterns without forcing them. Follow intuitive nudges while staying grounded in practical wisdom. The practice: dedicate one full day to a synchronicity experiment. Begin your morning by setting an intention to notice subtle signs and follow gentle intuitive prompts. As you move through your day, record any meaningful coincidences, unexpected connections, or inner nudges that arise. Notice what happens when you follow these subtle guidances without attachment to specific outcomes. Pay attention to both external events and internal feelings of rightness or resonance. At day's end, review your notes to identify patterns or themes that emerged. Chapter 18: Energetic Boundaries as Magnetic Filters. Pearl sat at her desk late Friday afternoon when her supervisor approached with an urgent request. "Could you take on the Henderson account this weekend? It would really help us out." The old Pearl would have immediately said yes, sacrificing her precious restoration time, but something had shifted in her. "I appreciate you thinking of me," she replied with gentle firmness, "but I've committed to protecting my weekends for rest and renewal. I'd be happy to tackle it first thing Monday morning." Instead of the anticipated disappointment or pressure, her supervisor nodded with respect. "I understand completely. We'll figure out another solution." That Sunday, while enjoying a peaceful morning at her favorite cafe, Pearl met James, an architect who spoke about his own journey with work-life boundaries. Their conversation flowed naturally, neither pushing for more than the moment offered. This simple exchange illuminates a profound truth. Boundaries aren't walls. They're filters that attract aligned connections while gracefully deflecting mismatched energies. When you honor your needs with kind clarity, you broadcast a frequency of self-respect that draws others who share that wavelength. Like a garden fence that keeps flowers safe while allowing sunlight through, healthy boundaries preserve your essential nature. They're not rigid barriers but permeable membranes, allowing genuine connection while maintaining personal integrity. Later that month, Pearl noticed how different her social circle had become. Those who respected her naturally gravitated closer, while connections built on obligation gradually faded. Each boundary she set acted as a tuning fork, attracting relationships that resonated with her authentic rhythm. "I used to think maintaining boundaries meant losing people," Pearl reflected. "Now I understand they help me find my true tribe." The key lies in delivery. Boundaries can be both firm and gracious. Practice phrases that honor both yourself and others. "I care about our connection, and I need to honor my limits." "Thank you for thinking of me. My current capacity is full. I value what we share, and I also need to maintain my personal space." The practice. Before attending any social gathering or entering a potentially demanding situation, take 5 minutes for a boundary rehearsal. Stand before a mirror and practice delivering your prepared phrases with calm confidence. Feel the grounding sensation of honoring your needs while remaining open to authentic connection. Breathe deeply and imagine your boundaries as a soft, glowing field that both protects and attracts. Choose one clear boundary to maintain during the event and notice how it affects the quality of your interactions. Chapter 19: The Field of Inner Union. Jasper stood in his kitchen one morning, simultaneously preparing his daughter's lunch while reviewing work documents on his tablet. In the past, this kind of multitasking left him feeling scattered and stressed, but today felt different. As he mindfully packed Emma's favorite sandwich, his eyes scanning quarterly reports, he noticed an unusual sense of calm integration. Instead of fighting against the duality of these roles, nurturing father and focused professional, he allowed them to coexist. The precision of his business mind flowed seamlessly into the tenderness of parental care. This wasn't about doing two things at once, it was about being whole. This moment illuminates a fundamental truth about attraction. Wholeness draws wholeness. When we reconcile our seemingly opposing energies, the driven and the receptive, the structured and the flowing, we create an inner harmony that naturally magnetizes balanced connections. Later that week, Jasper began a simple morning practice of alternating between analytical planning and intuitive reflection. He'd spend 5 minutes organizing his day with logical precision, then 5 minutes feeling into his deeper wisdom without judgment. Rather than compartmentalizing these aspects, he allowed them to inform each other. Within weeks, he noticed subtle shifts in his daily encounters. At a community workshop, he met others who similarly embraced both structure and spontaneity. His conversations naturally deepened with people who could discuss both practical matters and matters of the heart with equal comfort. The essential teaching here is clear: inner union precedes outer union. When you heal the artificial divide between your masculine and feminine energies, between doing and being, pursuing and allowing, speaking and listening, you create a magnetic field of completeness that attracts equally integrated connections. The practice to find a quiet space and sit comfortably. Begin with alternating breath work. Inhale through your right nostril, masculine activating energy, for 4 counts. Then exhale through your left nostril, feminine, receptive energy, for 4 counts. Continue this pattern for 3 minutes. As you breathe, visualize these energies as distinct but complementary colors merging in your heart center. Feel the steady pulse of their union. Complete the practice by placing both hands over your heart, acknowledging the wholeness that emerges when all aspects of self are welcomed and integrated. Chapter 20. Trusting the Invisible Work. The autumn air carried a crisp certainty as Viola knelt in her garden, carefully placing tulip bulbs into the dark earth. Each one disappeared beneath the soil, leaving no visible trace of the vibrant blooms they would become. Her neighbors had questioned her meticulous attention to spacing and depth, seeing only bare ground where she envisioned a spring garden. "Seems like an awful lot of work for something you can't even see," remarked one passing friend. But Viola understood the power of unseen preparation. She knew that beneath the surface, roots would slowly extend, gathering strength through winter's quiet months. This truth extends beyond gardening into the deeper work of attraction. Like those dormant bulbs, the magnetic field you cultivate requires patient faith and steady tending. Each aligned choice, each moment of self-worth, each boundary-honored plants seeds of future connection, even when no obvious signs appear. 3 months later, Viola attended a community art showing. There she encountered James, someone she'd briefly met the previous year when her inner work was just beginning. The connection felt different now, deeper, more resonant. She recognized that their meaningful conversation wasn't random timing, but rather the natural flowering of her months of internal cultivation. "Something's shifted in how you carry yourself," James noted thoughtfully. "There's a groundedness that wasn't there before." Viola smiled, understanding that her patient inner work had created visible changes, even though she couldn't track them day by day. The art of magnetic attraction requires this same faith in unseen growth. While the mind craves immediate evidence, true transformation follows nature's timing. Just as a gardener doesn't dig up seeds to check their progress, we must trust the process of inner development while staying attentive to subtle signs of growth. These signs often appear as quiet shifts: increased ease in setting boundaries, fewer moments of self-doubt, greater clarity about what feels aligned. Like tender shoots pushing through soil, these changes may seem small, yet signal deeper movement. The practice. Each evening, open your noticings ledger and record 3 subtle shifts observed during your day. These might include focus on actual evidence rather than wishful thinking, note concrete details, changed responses, new patterns, different quality of interactions. This builds a foundation of trustworthy faith, rooted in real observation rather than mere hope. Through consistent recording, you'll discover that growth, though often invisible, leaves traceable markers for those patient enough to notice. Part 3. Mastery of Soul-Level Attraction. Chapter 21. The Embodied Magnet. The afternoon light slanted through dusty bookstore windows as Herman browsed the poetry section, his movements unhurried and deliberate. Years of morning meditation had cultivated a natural stillness that seemed to create space around him. As he stood reading Rumi, a woman paused nearby, drawn not by any obvious action but by the quality of his presence. "That's one of my favorites," she said softly, noting the book in his hands. Their conversation unfolded with the same peaceful rhythm that Herman had carefully nurtured in himself, each word given space to resonate. This magnetic presence isn't accident or magic. It's the product of consistent embodiment practices that align inner state with outer expression. Just as a tuning fork vibrates at a precise frequency, our physical presence broadcasts our inner state with remarkable accuracy. The foundation of magnetic presence lies in 3 key elements: posture that expresses dignity, breath that centers awareness, and ritual that anchors intention. These aren't surface adjustments, but deep attunements that, when practiced daily, create a field of authentic attraction. 3 months later, Herman noticed how this embodied awareness had subtly transformed his interactions. At the local coffee shop where he wrote each morning, genuine connections formed naturally. His practiced presence created a gentle invitation for others to drop their social masks and engage more authentically. One morning, a fellow writer commented, "There's something different about how you occupy space. It makes people feel like they can be real." Herman recognized this as the fruit of his daily practice, the small rituals of alignment that had gradually shifted his entire way of being. The key is consistency rather than intensity. Each morning, Herman would take 5 minutes to ground himself through specific practices: feet planted firmly on the floor, spine lengthened with dignity, breath flowing deep into the belly. He would set an intention phrase that aligned with his desired frequency: "I embody peaceful presence." To integrate magnetic presence into your own life, begin with this essential morning sequence. Ground yourself physically through proper posture, feet rooted, spine aligned, shoulders relaxed. Let your breath deepen naturally, following its rhythm for several cycles. Speak your intention phrase aloud, feeling its resonance in your body. This becomes your daily calibration, a physical reset that aligns inner frequency with outer expression. This practice isn't about performing or pretending. It's about embodying your authentic frequency so consistently that it becomes your natural state. Just as a well-tuned instrument produces clear tones effortlessly, an aligned presence naturally attracts aligned connections. The morning practice: stand with dignity, grounding through your feet. Take 3 full breaths into your belly. Speak your intention phrase with conviction. Let this embodied awareness carry you into your day. Chapter 22. The Soul Signature Frequency. Winifred sat on her front porch one autumn morning, unconsciously humming "Amazing Grace" as she sorted through her mail. The melody, carried on the breeze, drew Mrs. Henderson from next door to pause in her gardening. "That hymn," she said, "it reminds me of Sunday mornings at my grandmother's house." Their eyes met in shared recognition, a moment of genuine connection born from an authentic expression. Every soul carries its own distinct frequency, a unique signature that speaks to those who share its resonance. Like a tuning fork that causes other instruments to vibrate in harmony, your truest expressions, whether a habitual phrase, a characteristic laugh, or even the way you arrange flowers in a vase, act as calls to those who naturally attune to your frequency. These soul signatures aren't crafted or calculated, they emerge naturally from your deepest self. They're found in the small, seemingly insignificant choices that feel most natural to you. The books you're drawn to, the words you habitually use, the ways you express care or creativity. Later that week, Winifred found herself at the local library, unconsciously using her characteristic phrase, "Well, isn't that something?" when discovering an interesting passage in a book. A man browsing nearby smiled in recognition. "My mother used to say exactly that," he shared, leading to a conversation about shared values and similar upbringings. This wasn't coincidence, but resonance in action. When we allow our authentic expressions to flow naturally, they act as subtle but powerful signals to those who share our fundamental frequency. These signals bypass surface-level attractions and speak directly to soul-level recognition. To discover your own soul signature, observe the phrases, gestures, and small habits that feel most natural to you. Notice which of your authentic expressions tend to create moments of genuine connection. Pay attention to the words or actions that seem to draw others into meaningful conversation. The practice becomes simple but profound. Craft a brief sentence that captures your essential nature. Not who you think you should be, but who you naturally are. Speak this soul signature aloud each morning, letting its truth resonate in your body. Throughout your day, notice who responds to your authentic frequency. Keep a small journal of these resonant responses, tracking the subtle ways your truth calls to its matches. Your soul signature might be as simple as "I bring warmth to ordinary moments," or as specific as "I find wonder in life's hidden patterns." The key isn't in the words themselves, but in their authenticity, their ability to capture and express your unique energetic print. Chapter 23. Quantum Attraction. Otis sat at his kitchen table one Wednesday morning, a well-worn map spread before him. His fingers traced familiar highways until they stopped, inexplicably drawn to a small town in Montana he'd never visited. Something about the name resonated with a deep knowing inside him. Not wishful thinking, but a quiet certainty that felt more like recognition than desire. When we maintain sustained coherence, that delicate alignment of thought, feeling, and action, we begin to influence the fabric of possibility itself. Like a skilled weaver working with invisible threads, our consistent focus and aligned energy collapse multiple probable pathways into a single crystallized reality. The universe operates not through rigid determinism, but through fields of possibility. Each moment contains countless potential outcomes, yet our sustained coherence acts as a gentle pressure, encouraging certain possibilities to manifest while others fade. This isn't magical thinking, it's the practical application of focused consciousness combined with aligned action. Later that week, Otis checked his mail to find a letter from an old colleague who had relocated to that very town in Montana. "We're starting a project here that fits your expertise perfectly," the letter read. "I thought of you immediately." This wasn't mere coincidence. His sustained focus, combined with the feeling tone of rightness he'd maintained, had created a bridge between possibility and manifestation. The key lies not in forcing outcomes, but in maintaining such clear inner coherence that the outer world naturally reorganizes to match it. To work with probable pathways requires a delicate touch. Too much grasping creates resistance, while too little focus dissipates potential. The sweet spot lies in holding steady awareness while remaining deeply relaxed, like keeping your balance on a boat without rigidly bracing yourself. The interpretation reveals a profound truth. Sustained coherence doesn't require strain. Instead, it asks for gentle persistence, like keeping a compass pointed north while allowing the path itself to unfold naturally. This involves maintaining clear intention while releasing attachment to specific forms or timelines. The nightly practice becomes essential. Lying quietly before sleep, spend 5 minutes imagining your desired reality in present tense, not as a future hope, but as a current experience. Feel the textures, notice the details, inhabit the emotional landscape of that reality. Do this with relaxed attention, like observing a scene through a window rather than trying to force it into being. "I am here now" becomes your silent mantra as you explore this probable reality, allowing your consciousness to familiarize itself with this version of life. This gentle yet focused practice, repeated consistently, helps collapse the gap between current circumstance and desired experience, bringing probable pathways into manifestation with surprising grace. Chapter 24: The Path of Inspired Action. On a drizzly Tuesday evening, Muriel almost talked herself out of attending the poetry reading at her local bookstore. She had already changed into her comfortable house clothes and made tea, ready to settle in for the night. Yet something about the event notice she'd spotted earlier that day kept tugging at her awareness. Not an anxious push, but a gentle, persistent whisper. Following this quiet prompt, she changed back into her day clothes and walked the 3 blocks to the bookstore. The small crowd gathered there felt immediately welcoming, and during the intermission, she found herself in conversation with a woman whose insights about the poems mirrored her own unspoken thoughts. This illustrates a crucial distinction in the art of magnetic attraction. Inspired action differs fundamentally from frantic doing. When we act from inspiration, we move with a kind of effortless certainty that feels more like allowing than forcing. The action itself may be small, attending a reading, taking a different route home, accepting an unexpected invitation, but its resonance runs deep. To test whether an impulse is authentic inspiration rather than anxious compensation, notice 3 things. First, does it arrive with a quality of quiet certainty rather than desperate urgency? Second, does it feel light rather than heavy with expectation? Third, can you hold it loosely, willing to let it go if circumstances shift? 2 weeks later, Muriel's new acquaintance from the poetry reading introduced her to a writing group that would become central to her creative life. This wasn't the outcome she'd been seeking when she followed that initial nudge. It was better, richer, more aligned with her deeper path than anything she could have orchestrated. True inspired action often leads to results we couldn't have planned, precisely because it emerges from a wisdom larger than our strategic minds. It operates not through force but through alignment, moving us into position for connections and opportunities that match our authentic frequency. The interpretation reveals that inspired action requires both courage and discernment. Courage to follow subtle promptings even when they seem illogical, and discernment to distinguish between genuine inspiration and anxious pushing. This balance is developed through practice and careful observation of results. For 3 days, maintain an inspired action ledger. Each day, record one small action taken from genuine inspiration rather than should-based thinking. Note the quality of the impulse, how it felt to follow it, and what unexpectedly unfolded as a result. This simple practice builds trust in your inner guidance system while refining your ability to distinguish between authentic prompts and compensatory doing. Chapter 25: Becoming the Oasis. Stanley's modest kitchen had become an unofficial sanctuary in the neighborhood. It wasn't grand or particularly well equipped, but something about the warmth that emanated from both the space and its keeper drew people in like moths to a gentle flame. On Sunday afternoons, the aroma of fresh coffee mingled with whatever simple dish he'd prepared. Sometimes just toast and honey, other times a hearty soup. Neighbors would drift in, sharing their worries or celebrations, finding in Stanley's quiet presence a restoration they couldn't quite name. He never positioned himself as a counselor or wise man. Instead, he simply maintained an open door and an unhurried attention that made others feel truly seen. When Sarah from apartment 4B came in after a difficult phone call with her sister, Stanley just poured her a cup of coffee and continued washing dishes, allowing her space to either speak or sit in comfortable silence. The core of emotional abundance lies not in giving advice or solving problems, but in maintaining a presence so deeply nourished that it naturally overflows to others, like a well that continuously replenishes itself. This kind of sustainable generosity comes from regular connection to one's own source of renewal. One rainy evening, Thomas, a recently divorced father from down the street, stopped by with his young daughter. They had become regular visitors, drawn not by any particular wisdom Stanley offered, but by the peaceful atmosphere he maintained. That night, watching Thomas help his daughter with homework at the kitchen table while sharing a simple meal, Stanley witnessed how his space had become a shelter where healing connections could form naturally. The key to maintaining this kind of replenishing presence lies in understanding that true abundance doesn't require constant output. Instead, it flows from regular restoration of one's own inner resources. This isn't selfishness, it's the foundation of sustainable giving. 3 essential elements create this sustainable abundance. First, regular solitude that allows inner resources to replenish. Second, boundaries that protect your energy without becoming walls. Third, a practice of receiving and acknowledging the gifts that flow back to you, completing the circle of giving and receiving. For those seeking to cultivate this quality of replenishing presence, begin with a weekly solitude hour, time set aside purely for restoration, whether through meditation, nature walks, or simple quiet contemplation. Complement this with a daily gratitude ledger, noting 3 instances where you either gave or received nourishment. This practice builds awareness of the constant flow of abundance while ensuring your own well stays full. Chapter 26. The Magnetic Exchange. Every Saturday morning, Gertrude arranged her homemade preserves on a worn wooden table at the local farmer's market. Her jars gleamed like jewels in the morning sun, strawberry, peach, and her famous orange marmalade. But what truly made her stand out wasn't just the quality of her preserves. It was how she turned each exchange into a moment of genuine connection. "This marmalade reminds me of my grandmother's recipe," a customer would say, and Gertrude would lean in slightly, creating a space for stories to unfold. She never rushed these moments, understanding that the exchange of memories was as valuable as the exchange of goods. One morning, a woman named Helen traded her freshly baked sourdough for Gertrude's peach preserves, and they found themselves sharing childhood memories of summer canning sessions with their mothers. The art of balanced exchange forms the foundation of mature attraction. Like a well-choreographed dance, it requires both partners to step forward and back in equal measure. When we give without allowing others to reciprocate, we create an energetic imbalance that can stifle genuine connection. Conversely, when we only take without giving, we drain the very connections we seek to build. Later that month, Gertrude noticed Helen struggling with heavy boxes at her market stall. Without hesitation, she offered help. The following week, Helen arrived early to help Gertrude set up her display. This natural flow of giving and receiving created a foundation of trust that deepened their friendship. Each exchange, whether material or emotional, serves as a bridge between souls. The key lies not in keeping score, but in maintaining an open channel where energy can flow freely in both directions. This practice requires presence to recognize opportunities for exchange and courage to remain open to receiving as well as giving. To cultivate this balance in daily life, begin by noticing the small exchanges that already exist in your world. A smile returned, a door held open, a moment of attention freely given and received. These micro-exchanges create the energetic foundation for deeper connections to form. The evening practice is simple but profound. Before sleep, note one instance of giving and one of receiving from your day. This careful attention to the flow of exchange helps calibrate your energy field toward balanced connections. It might be as simple as recording "gave, helped my neighbor carry groceries," and "received, accepted a cup of tea from a coworker." Over time, this awareness naturally adjusts your capacity for both giving and receiving, creating a magnetic field that attracts equally balanced relationships. Chapter 27. Recognizing the Right Soul. The fluorescent lights flickered in the late-night train carriage as Amos settled into his seat, briefcase tucked neatly beside him. At the next stop, an elderly woman entered and sat across from him. Neither spoke, yet in that shared silence, something profound transpired. Their mutual respect for the quiet created a momentary sanctuary in the gentle sway of the moving train. This wordless exchange exemplifies the deeper nature of true recognition. While chemistry crackles with excitement and demands immediate attention, genuine resonance often arrives with quiet certainty. It speaks through the body's wisdom rather than the mind's expectations. The art of discerning true recognition requires attention to three distinct layers. First, there are the somatic cues, the body's immediate response to another's presence. Does your breath deepen naturally? Does tension release from your shoulders? These physical signals bypass our mental filters and speak directly to compatibility. Second comes ethical resonance, the alignment of core values that manifests in small, telling moments. When the elderly woman carefully placed her bag to avoid inconveniencing others, Amos recognized a shared respect for communal space. Such micro-actions reveal character more truthfully than words. The third element is steady rhythm, the natural, unhurried pace of authentic connection. Later that month, Amos experienced this while declining a promising but rushed connection. Instead of pursuing immediate chemistry with someone who suggested meeting the same evening, he honored his intuition that called for a slower pace. This choice led him to meet Rachel at a community garden, where their initial conversation unfolded at the peaceful pace of growing things. Their connection wasn't marked by fireworks, but by a steady warmth that allowed genuine knowing to emerge. The body's wisdom had guided him toward sustainable harmony rather than temporary excitement. To navigate new encounters with this somatic intelligence, we must learn to read our body's subtle language. The practice is elegantly simple. Pause for a 3-point somatic check. First, notice your breath. Has it naturally deepened or become shallow? Second, observe your gaze. Does it rest easily on the other person or dart away? Finally, scan for felt steadiness. Does your body settle into calm presence or buzz with artificial excitement? This somatic checking becomes an internal compass, steering us toward connections that nourish rather than deplete. It requires practice and patience, but like any skill, it strengthens with consistent attention. Through this embodied awareness, we learn to distinguish between the fleeting spark of chemistry and the steady flame of true recognition. Chapter 28. The Fusion of Frequencies. The late summer breeze carried the scent of fresh paint as Hilda and Thomas worked together on her weathered front porch. They had started early that morning, each taking a side, but something shifted as the hours passed. Without discussion, their brushstrokes fell into an effortless synchronization. The squeaking of brushes against wood became a steady rhythm, their movements flowing in natural harmony. This organic coordination reveals a profound truth about partnership, that when two people align in shared purpose, something greater emerges. Like musicians finding their groove, Hilda and Thomas discovered that working in tandem required less effort than working alone. The porch became more than a renovation project. It transformed into a living metaphor for how partnership creates its own unique field of possibility. When two consciousness meet with intention, they birth what ancient wisdom traditions call the third field, a shared energetic space that holds more potential than either person carries alone. This field manifests through tangible signs, matched breathing patterns, synchronized movements, and a sense of enhanced flow that makes complex tasks feel surprisingly manageable. Later that month, what began as a simple porch painting evolved into a neighborhood beautification project. Hilda and Thomas found themselves coordinating weekend work parties, their initial harmony inspiring others to join in. Their shared vision expanded naturally, drawing in resources and support neither could have attracted alone. The power of partnership lies not just in combining forces, but in creating something entirely new. Like oxygen and hydrogen forming water, true partnership transcends simple addition to create properties neither element possessed independently. This emergent quality shows up as enhanced creativity, deepened intuition, and an expanded sense of what's possible. To nurture this co-creative field requires conscious tending. Daily rituals of appreciation, weekly check-ins, and mutual acknowledgement of growth keep the shared space vital and dynamic. Small gestures, a morning text, a shared moment of gratitude, a brief pause to align intentions, maintain the resonance that makes partnership magnetic. The practice for cultivating this field is elegantly simple. Once each week, partners pause together for what we call the co-creation ritual. Find a quiet moment, perhaps over morning coffee or an evening walk. Begin by each sharing one observation about how your connection has expanded your individual life. Then set one clear intention for the week ahead that you wish to create together. Finally, take 3 synchronized breaths while holding hands, allowing your energy fields to harmonize. This ritual isn't about forcing outcomes, but rather about tending the subtle field between you where magic unfolds naturally. Like gardeners preparing soil, you create conditions for organic growth rather than demanding specific blooms. The power lies in consistent, gentle attention to the space you share. Chapter 29, The Sacred Partnership Field. Percy stood in the morning light, 2 packets of bean seeds in his weathered hands as Maria knelt beside him in their small urban garden. They had spent weeks preparing the soil together, each bringing their own wisdom. Percy's grandmother's timing with the moon phases, Maria's knowledge of companion planting. Now, as they created neat furrows in the dark earth, their movements flowed with practiced ease. 3 inches deep, Percy murmured, making small indentations while Maria followed, dropping seeds with careful precision. Their shared focus transformed this simple act into something sacred, a quiet declaration of faith in future harvests and continued partnership. This moment illuminates a fundamental truth. Partnership thrives not through grand gestures, but through consistent, mindful co-creation. Like seeds requiring both soil and water, relationships flourish when both partners bring their unique elements to nurture growth. The daily practice of showing up, staying present, and tending to what matters creates a foundation strong enough to weather any season. Later that month, when Percy discovered some beans had failed to sprout, his initial disappointment sparked tension. Instead of retreating into blame or silence, they sat together on their back steps, examining what might have gone wrong. Maria suggested they'd planted too early. Percy acknowledged rushing the timing. This honest exchange transformed potential conflict into deeper understanding, strengthening their bond through vulnerability rather than weakening it through defensiveness. The sacred practice of partnership requires 3 essential elements: radical honesty that builds trust, grateful inquiry that deepens understanding, and mutual stewardship that sustains growth. These elements create what ancient traditions call sacred space, an energetic field where both individuals can evolve while remaining deeply connected. To maintain this field requires regular renewal. Just as gardens need consistent attention, partnerships thrive with intentional tending. Each month offers an opportunity to pause, reflect, and consciously choose to continue growing together. This isn't about rigid formality, but about creating space for authentic connection and renewed commitment. The monthly renewal practice invites partners to sit together in a quiet space, perhaps with candles lit or in a meaningful location. Begin by each sharing 3 specific gratitudes about your partnership. Then explore one challenge you're navigating together, viewing it as soil for growth rather than an obstacle. Close by, speaking simple vows that feel true for this season of your journey, followed by a moment of silent appreciation for what you're building together. This ritual becomes both anchor and compass, grounding you in appreciation while guiding you toward deeper connection. Like Percy and Maria's garden, it creates space for both planned growth and unexpected blossoming, honoring both the work and wonder of sacred partnership. Chapter 30. Living in Magnetic Mastery. Florence stood in her kitchen showing her young neighbor Emma how to infuse honey with lavender, not just the mechanical process, but the intentional practice of it. As you stir, Florence demonstrated, making 3 clockwise circles with a wooden spoon, hold in your heart what you wish to cultivate. Emma watched intently, her usual restlessness settling into focused presence. 3 weeks later, Emma appeared at Florence's door, eyes bright. "Something's different," she said, describing how people at work had begun responding to her differently, approaching her with unexpected warmth. The shift wasn't dramatic, no lightning bolts or sudden windfalls, but rather a gentle realignment, like a stream finding its natural course. This simple moment illuminates the heart of mastery, the patient cultivation of practices that sustain your magnetic field. True mastery isn't about reaching a destination, but about maintaining a way of being through daily rituals, seasonal adjustments, and the sacred act of passing wisdom forward. Later that month, Florence found herself surprised by an invitation to a community gathering she'd normally decline. Following her own teachings about remaining open to life's offerings, she attended. There, amid the casual conversations and shared dishes, she experienced an unexpected connection that reminded her that even masters remain eternal students of love's mysteries. The path of mastery requires 3 interwoven elements: consistent personal practice, mentorship, both giving and receiving, and the courage to let your methods evolve as you grow. Like tending a garden through changing seasons, each element requires different attention at different times. A sustainable mastery practice follows a 6-week cycle that prevents stagnation while maintaining stability. The first 2 weeks focus on strengthening your foundation through daily rituals. The middle 2 weeks emphasize sharing your wisdom and remaining open to learning from others. The final 2 weeks invite gentle innovation, small adjustments to your practices that keep them fresh and alive. The 6-week mastery maintenance plan serves as both anchor and evolution. Begin by mapping your essential daily practices, those non-negotiable rituals that maintain your field. Add weekly check-ins that assess your energetic clarity and make needed adjustments. Finally, include monthly reviews that ensure your practices continue serving your highest alignment while remaining open to love's continuing education. This rhythm becomes the heartbeat of sustained mastery, regular enough to create stability, flexible enough to embrace growth, and spacious enough to welcome love's surprising gifts. Like Florence's honey ritual, it transforms simple actions into sacred practice, keeping your frequency clear and your heart open to life's endless capacity to amaze. The practice invites crafting your personal 6-week maintenance plan, incorporating daily elements, morning alignment, evening clearing, Weekly elements: field assessment, boundary check. Monthly elements: practice refinement, gratitude ritual, conclusion. The ancient wisdom keepers understood that transformation isn't a destination but a living covenant with ourselves. Like a garden that requires consistent tending, your resonant identity thrives through devoted attention. The small daily practices that may seem insignificant in the moment, but accumulate into profound change. Consider the metaphor of the lighthouse keeper who, regardless of weather or season, climbs the tower each evening to light the beacon. This steadfast ritual isn't merely about the light itself, but about maintaining a consistent signal that guides ships safely to shore. Your frequency works in much the same way. It's the steady beacon that draws aligned love toward you. The threefold practice of align, allow, act forms the foundation of this sacred maintenance. Alignment centers your energy and truth, allowing creates space for divine timing, and inspired action moves you gently into life's flow. This trinity of practices doesn't demand grand gestures, but rather small, consistent choices that honor your deepest knowing. The morning consecration ritual serves as your daily remembrance. Like the first ray of sunlight touching a flower, it gently awakens your magnetic field. The lit candle represents your commitment to keeping your signal clear and strong. Speaking your soul signature aloud reminds you of who you are when you're most authentically aligned. The small aligned action, perhaps a moment of meditation, a kind word offered freely, or a boundary held with grace, embodies your frequency in the physical world. Think of this practice as leaving a light on in the window of your soul. It signals to the universe that you're home to yourself, awake to love's possibilities, and committed to maintaining the resonance that attracts your highest good. This isn't about perfection, but presence, showing up each day with renewed dedication to your own magnetic clarity. The 30-day covenant creates the container for this transformation to root deeply. Each morning becomes a quiet celebration of your commitment to living in alignment with love's highest frequency. Each evening offers a gentle review of how you maintained your signal throughout the day. The practice is elegantly simple. Each morning, light a candle or small lamp as your beacon of intention. Speak your soul signature aloud, letting its truth vibrate through your being. Then choose one small action that expresses your resonant identity and carry it out during the day. This becomes your daily offering to love's mystery while honoring its practical habits. Remember that love is both the most profound mystery and the most practical art. It requires both reverence for its sacred nature and dedication to its daily practice. Your frequency becomes the bridge between these two truths, and your consistent tending keeps that bridge strong and clear.
If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.